Okay, so I'm just going to digress from the chronological sequence for a little while and talk a little bit about the computers, because obviously that was the actual thing that caused all the problems at the school. So the existing setup, so this would have been about the end of, at the end of 2007, the situation was we had an old Acorn network which I put in over the course of the preceding 15 or so years. Some of them were really old, from the early 90s, these computers. Worked fine, never any problems with it. But it was obviously getting old, long in the tooth. 15-year-old is quite a long time for computers, quite an age. And we had a selection of Apple computers, a couple of old Power PCs and a few iMacs, some of which we bought new. Most of them we got second-hand off eBay. The ones with the coloured backs, the nice-looking things. And we got, as I say, the Acorn network was working fine. We couldn't actually get the Macs to talk to each other. So in the end, we bit the bullet and we got a guy in from Maidstone, from Microspot or Micro something, and he came over and he said, "Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the latest operating system on all of them, and then they'll just talk to each other, plug them in." Easy peasy, which he did, and so we had, we were sharing files and printing and sharing peripherals, and it was all, very, we were happy. I don't think we'd been like that for about a year and a half or something. No problems at all. The odd little bits and pieces we needed to do with the Mac's network, Paul and I could do because we both had Macs at home, and we were fans of them, so that was okay. So that was the situation. Then, as I say, it must have been the end of 2007. The then head of IT, Eric Gaskell, decided he wanted to do an audit of all the IT stuff in the school, because there were various little pockets of computers appearing around the place from brave souls who were trying to sort of drag the school into the 21st century. And he came over, Tim Pryor came over, the IT technician, and he was doing this audit, and he was talking to us about the Apple stuff. And he said, have you got the original discs, the system discs that go with these? And we went, no, most of them we bought second hand, from the back of a warehouse in London. And he said, you're breaking the law. I said, well, when you buy a second hand computer, how many times you get the discs with it? Oh, it doesn't matter, in a school we can't be doing this. Anyway, he made a big fuss about it. I don't know if it was on Eric's guidance or something like that. Anyway, they made a big fuss about it. And he said, I said, well, you won't tell anybody, you don't. He said, well, if I was to tell the copyright people or the licensing people, I could get £50 for each computer you're running, and you and Paul could be put in prison, for breaking copyright laws. And oh my God. Anyway, this was reported to Kathy, head of technology, and then the head got involved and the deputies, and they're all waving their arms about saying, what can we do? We can't use your computers. You'll have to get new computers. So Paul and I thought, okay, we've been asking for new computers for over a decade, and this has finally forced their hand. We'll have a nice new, they just brought the new iMac out. We'll have a nice suite of iMacs. That'd be nice, won't it? Anyway, as soon as Mary Stanhard, the bursar, heard about it, she had apoplexy. There's no way we can afford all those, blah, 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 made a big fuss about it. You've got to have PCs because they're cheaper. And we said, well, we know Macs, we use Macs, we've had Macs, they're working all right. Kids like them. They're the future, and so she did a survey. There's no schools anywhere in Canterbury who use Macs. Everybody uses PCs. No, oh God, it's the old, you can't be sacked for buying an IBM thing from the. Anyway, they made a big fuss about it. I said, well, okay, look, if it's a money thing, Paul and I discussed it, and we said we would rather have 6 or 7 Macs rather than 9, 10, 11 PCs, we for the same money. Well, we're not going to be greedy about this. We're realistic about it. Anyway, they said no. They said we want the whole site to be PC, then they can be supported. And I said, well, we don't need to be all networked together. There's no need to have our computers networked. Kids can't work without the software, that we've got on our computers, and you're not going to license Photoshop for the whole campus. It cost a fortune. Anyway, I was overridden as it, and I said, well, as head of design, I should have a say in it. You don't tell Kathy that she can't have gas cookers or electric cookers or whatever it is. You don't tell the PE people what equipment to use or the science. Why is it, no, you're going to have this. Anyway, so they started to, our stuff was all taken away and bunged in the back office, back cupboard, and they started to bring these PCs in. Turns out that they got this new guy who was helping Tim Pryor in the support thing, and he was making these things. He was knocking them together out of bits he bought online and stuff. Cheap and nasty. They didn't even beep when you turned the damn things on. They didn't have a speaker in them. Anyway, they started to put these things in, and it took ages to commission them, ages to get it right. I think it took half the year before I got my data projector working. It was just a nightmare. They were always falling over. They were always, I just can't emphasise what a nightmare it was. And it wasn't just us. There are other people in the school, complaining about the computers and about. I know that the geography woman used to put all her kids' work on a memory stick and take it home to print it, because you can never get the printer working. Anyway, it was just a disaster. Anyway, at the end of the year, things really came to a head, because I wanted to show a film to some kids about some industrial process, and there was no sound at all, and I was trying to work out what was going on, checked all the connections, checked the software and all that sort of stuff. And so I got on to Tim. Took him about 3 or 4 days to come round, and eventually he came round. I was in the workshop, and he came in, so it's all working now. Anyway, that was that. And I got an email from him, which was copied to the head, and to Janet, and to the Bertha, and to Kathy. And it said, I've mended Steve computers. The reason they weren't working is because the sound was turned down. Oh, God. Well, you can imagine, I wasn't particularly pleased by that, because obviously it's the first thing you do. Anyway. This was, I say, in December, I think. It was the end of the year. Anyway, in September, a new head of IT had started, Julia Mitchard, and she'd come from, I think she worked for banks or something. She'd come from industry, hadn't done business experience. And I was chatting to her about it. I said, why would you say such a thing? And she said, well, they don't want to make themselves look like they were covering their own back, she reckoned. She said, I'll come have a look at it for you. Anyway, she came over and she sat at this computer, because we had one of the computers had a sound card in it, so we could watch videos and stuff. And she was clicking the mouse and pressing keys and stuff like that, and this window popped. So there we go. And I said, what's that? She said, that's an event log. It records everything that's happened to the computer over the last X months. I said, oh, crikey. When did you have your problem? I said, it was Tuesday. So she looked in. There it is. I/O conflict. And I said, what's that? She said, well, I/O is input-output. That's your sound card. Your sound card had some conflict, some problem with some software you were using. That's why it crashed. And I said, oh, well, I said, what? No. Anyway, she said, what you've got to do is every time something goes wrong, you've got to record it. You've got to take screenshots of error codes. You've got to take photographs if the thing freezes. You've got to write down things that get lost and go missing and all that sort of stuff. And I said, oh. And she said, well, she was really quite disparaging about Tim and Ed. She said, well, if they worked, if they'd have worked for me in Canary Wharf, they would have lasted half the day. They'd have been down the road by lunchtime. Or you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. She was really quite disparaging about them, quite cruel, but obviously she knew what she was talking about. So that's what I did. So throughout 2009, I was keeping these records, and I had 150, I think I'd already mentioned, I had 150 crashes during that year, over 150. And of course that is 150 disruptions to the lesson. It's 150 kids losing work or not being able to do something, or things going wrong and lesson plans going. It was just a bloody nightmare. Anyway, So it was getting really ridiculous. Throughout the year, I'd been talking to the head and the deputies, and they were going, "Oh, no, what can we do?" And Kathy, and eventually I said to the head, "I want to talk to somebody from the governing body about this." So I was. This is at the end, I'd say, the end of 2008, and no, end of 2009. Sorry, and so I was put in touch with Anne Williamson. So I phoned her up a couple of times, told her the whole story, and she said, "Oh, it's just terrible, you know." Made all the right noises. Said, "Oh, I'll come and see you." Never came to see me. Anyway, things got moving, and when we came back for the new term in 2010, they said, "We've got some guy coming, he's going to sort it all out." And this guy's name was Nicholson, I think. Didn't know who he was. Anyway, it turned out he was a parent. He was a parent. So anyway, this guy came in and he was talking all the talk, and he was saying things like, "Oh, you know, of course, if you're using Photoshop, you've got to have two hard disks in the machine." And Paul and I are going, "What? You know, we don't." Anyway, he was put in charge of this, and these old PCs disappeared and shiny new ones came in. Black boxes, more black boxes came in, and he was putting new network boxes in and having new internet cables run across the place. It was a massive undertaking. Nothing worked. It was just the same as before. In fact, it got worse. I can remember I actually timed it for a kid clicking on his file to open. It took 47 seconds, you know, to get from the server in the other room. I mean, you could have walked a paper file back and forth about 10 times in that time. It was just ridiculous. And during that term, I had 60, because I was still keeping a record, 60 crashes. I went to Janet and said, "You know, this guy's way out of his depth. He talks the talk, but he just can't walk the walk. We're still in the same situation as we were before, and we spent loads of money, and my lessons are getting disrupted at a higher rate." And I said, "You know, there must be a time when you say, you know, pull the plug on him and say, 'Look, we're going to get somebody in to sort it out.'" And so it was agreed that over the Easter holidays, this guy, who would then have 3 weeks to get these computers done. So I think he had 8 in Paul's room and 6 in mine or something, because Paul was having trouble as well. It wasn't just me, but obviously I used them far more than Paul. Anyway, so that was all agreed. In fact, he had longer, because I'd gone to the west coast of Ireland, and a volcano had gone up in Iceland, do you remember? And so we were stuck under a dust cloud for an extra 4 or 5 days. So he had loads of time to do it. Came back in, turned things on, kids came in, ran the programs, crash. Anyway, so I went to Janet and I said, "This is just ridiculous." I said, I'm going to get the ones out of the back cupboard. I'd rather put my old computers back in. At least I know they work. They might be slow and clunky, but at least I know they work. So, and I said the reason I went to Julia was, I said, you know, maybe somebody else can use these. If they're just using them for Word and PowerPoint, it's probably going to be okay. It's not working with the software I'm using. So that was all. You know, they sort of went and nodded like this, because obviously I was, you know, a bit air-rated by the situation. So I took I disassembled them all, stacked up in the corner of the room. I told Tim about it. I said, maybe, you know, when you get a minute, you can come over with a barrow and take them all away and find a home for them. And I put the other computers back in, and we went back to working as we were. And I think I did that for about a week, maybe. They didn't come and get the computers. They were still stuck in the corner of the room, taking up desk space. And then one day I was away. I had to go on a field trip. I went on a field trip to France with Trevor Barnett, the head of languages, you know, with the lower fifth, I think, or middle fifth, I don't remember. Anyway, I was away for the day, and when I got back to my room, to my horror, I went into the room and I discovered that it was all my computers had been taken out and put back in the back cupboard, and all these other computers were now put in their place, back. You know, they're put back. And I said, what's happened? And did I see Kathy that day? I think it was late. Probably saw her the next morning. She said, he's going to come in and he's going to get them all sorted out and everything for you. You're not allowed to use the computers at all until he's got it sorted out. Just ridiculous. I said, how am I meant to teach my course without computers? Anyway, that was a situation, and that was a situation I was in when I told you a couple of episodes ago that it was the day of the swimming gala. Oh no, earlier the week of the swimming gala, I'd been trying to get these things printed out for David Knight, and I couldn't because I wasn't allowed to use the computer in my room, so I was trying to use Paul's, which weren't much better, as I told you. Anyway, that is a sort of thumbnail sketch of the situation with the computers pertained at St Edmunds at the time.